What a day of shame for the Prime Minister. A day when, under pressure, he just dug himself a deeper hole, a deeper pit of disgrace. His authority as a leader is now broken. This actually started last night when Anthony Albanese went to Melbourne for a Zionist Victoria commemoration for the 1,200 Jews slaughtered by Hamas on October 7 last year. And even as he walked in, he would have heard and seen from protest signs for one, how many Jews felt betrayed by him and his government.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll be going.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. Very tight.
It got worse, and that's because Jews have seen, we all have seen, how Albanese has pandered to Muslim voters, refused to call out hate preachers, attacked Israel, been weak in acting against the insane anti-Semitism on our streets. And last night at this function, the Zionism Victoria President, Yossi Goldfarb, with Albanese sitting right in front of him, let him have it for his weakness, his permissiveness. And listen here to the cheers of other Jews as he did.
There is a permissiveness that has let anti-Semitism fester, a permissiveness encouraged by weak and ambiguous expositions of our foreign policy, that in our community's view have weakened our social cohesion, leaving us to feel that the State of Israel has been abandoned as a natural ally of the Australian people.
Now, if that didn't tell Albanese he was on the wrong path, then this morning's headlines should have. Even the left-wing Guardian Australia had to admit, after comparing Albanese's note with Peter Dutton's at another commemoration, jeers for Albanese and cheers for Dutton, as leaders joined Jewish communities to mark 7 October atrocities. So this morning, the first day of the last sitting of Parliament for the year, Albanese must have realised he needed to show that he did get it about this anti-Semitism, about the preachers of this mad anti-Israel hate, like this academic, a fool who was chosen to address a Muslim mob at the Lakemba Mosque last night, seeming to gloat over the Jewish dead.
Today is not fully a day of mourning. In many respects, today is also a day that marks considerable celebration, considerable progress, and in some respects, considerable privilege.
Now, sure, the government's quickly saying, oh, look, we're going to look at cancelling that American's visa. Why did he even have one? But Albanese needed much more. So when Opposition Leader Peter Dutton this morning knocked on his office door, Albanese should have realised he'd been offered a gift. Dutton was following up on a letter he'd sent, as he told Parliament today.
On Saturday, I wrote to the Prime Minister suggesting that we should arrive at a bipartisan position and bring a motion before the House to mark the anniversary of October 7. This motion was supposed to be about October 7, about the loss of human life. I proposed to the Prime Minister a motion which was balanced and objective.
Dutton even had the words ready for them both to agree on, like that our Parliament unequivocally condemns the attack on Israel by Hamas and other terrorist groups too. It acknowledges the attacks came after a long period of quiet at the border. It acknowledges that Iran was behind these terror groups and acknowledged all the deaths of civilians, Palestinian as well as Israeli. And for some bizarre reason, Albanese refused to agree to that. Why, I don't know. I mean, a weak man's stubbornness, a fear of upsetting Muslims, a contempt for Israel? Or was it that line that Dutton also suggested about Israel sharing our values and Israel's battle being a battle against the enemies of civilized people everywhere, which is absolutely true? Whatever, Albanese refused. Said, no, I want my words, not yours. Except Albanese's words, which you read out in Parliament today, weren't just about the suffering of the Jews last October 7. Certainly it wasn't about a war for civilization. Instead, Albanese included his demands for a ceasefire, just when Israel is destroying the terrorist armies pledged to its destruction. And there was a lot more talk about poor Palestinians. So, what should have been just a moment of mourning for 1,200 Jews so savagely slaughtered a year ago was hijacked by Albanese into a defence of his both sides approach, of his pathetic demands that Israel stop shooting back.
And let's be very clear. Australia's position is consistent with other democratic countries. Escalation denies diplomacy any chance of working. On September 26, Australia joined with 11 other nations, including the US, Canada, France, Germany and the UK, Japan, to call for de-escalation.
Even more pathetic was that Albanese, who seemed suddenly so unsure of himself, then tabled documents quoting other people who backed him, other weak people.
I table, Mr Speaker, the statement from President Joe Biden marking 1 year since the October 7th attack, the statement from the G7 leaders.
But it wasn't just pathetic, this was disastrous politics because it gave Peter Dutton the opening and he went for him.
As I've said, we've gone backwards and forwards with the Prime Minister and his office this morning, in good faith, but not able to reach agreement in relation to this matter. And I think what it says to Australians, Mr Speaker, is that on this day, the 8th of October, the day after, the first sitting day after the 7th of October anniversary, that this Prime Minister wasn't able to lead a moment of bipartisanship in this parliament, which in my memory is without precedent, Prime Minister. There has always been a bipartisan position between your predecessors. You're citing Biden, France, Hawke, Keating. You don't mention them. You don't mention Rudd. You don't mention Gillard. There has been a position of bipartisanship on these issues, and your predecessors would have had the decency to respect the Jewish community in a way that you have not done today. And for that, Prime Minister, you should stand condemned.
And so today, something you rarely see when a bipartisan motion is put to Parliament. Yes, it passed, but the coalition didn't vote. Didn't vote for it because of Albanese's stubborn both-sidisms. This shamed Australia. It shamed the Prime Minister, who was so rattled and angry that he snapped at Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor with a playground insult that he quickly regretted.
It's nonsense that they carry on with. The idea that we're... Have you got Tourette's or something? You just sit there, babble, babble, babble.
Albanese knew he'd gone too far and quickly apologised. But will history forgive him for today?